Back here on the game, John Kurtz, News Radio KMAN, and I am joined right now by Bill Connelly of ESPN. He is a great college football nerd. I hope you don't take offense to me saying that, Bill. I think that's an endearing term, and if you follow the S&P Plus, those numbers in college football, certainly you're familiar with Bill Connelly and his work. The reason, and Bill, I appreciate you taking the time and joining me here today, that we are having Bill on the show is because he's one of the few that seems to be carrying in the aftermath of Texas and Oklahoma potentially leaving the Big 12 for the SEC, at least on a national level, somebody that cares about the K-State, Iowa State, TCU, and Baylor's of the world here with the thread that you put out on this. I guess let's just start with your initial reaction to the news from yesterday about Texas and Oklahoma.
I mean, my initial reaction was to laugh out loud because the idea of Texas trying to boss the SEC around just doesn't really compute all that well, and I'm not real sure how that's going to work out. So I wasn't taking it incredibly seriously at first, but within a few hours, it sure seemed to have become something to take seriously. And from that point, it really, I said it on Twitter. It really is kind of the nuclear option here. It takes a lot of the fun out of potential realignment and what-if scenarios because it really does just nuke a conference and all the other remaining programs in it.
Yeah, and you compared it to the Super League and what went on for a little while in soccer, and admittedly, I'm a bit out over my skis with that. But what is the comparison that you were making there in terms of how it affects college football?
Well, I mean, the proposed European Super League that came up and went down very quickly back in, I think, April was just, the idea of the best, or not even the best, the most noteworthy programs, the biggest programs from different leagues, the English Premier League and Spanish La Liga and all these, among the best leagues, were coming together and just decided to play themselves, take their ball and go home, more or less. And in that case, fans reacted very, very strongly against the idea. Fans of Arsenal and Liverpool and some of the English teams didn't want to trade playing their local rivals in the name of playing, Inter Milan twice a year or whatever. And they rebelled against it, and it died very, very quickly because of the outcry from the fans of the big club. But in this case, that doesn't really seem to be the way this is working out. So, we're only a day into these rumors, but so far that's not the way this is working out at all.
I'm talking right now to Bill Connelly from ESPN. I mean, what do you see then as the future for, you mentioned KU, West Virginia may have potential landing spots, but outside of that, the rest of the group in the Big 12, what is the best that we in Manhattan, Kansas, for example, here could hope for?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of game theory things out. We don't know, assuming there's a Big Ten and the ACC both try to respond in kind and add their own, make their own potential additions to get to 16 or whatever. We don't know what Notre Dame's thinking, whether they'd be an option for the ACC. We don't know a lot of that. We don't know who the Big Ten would be interested in. We've heard for a long time that, Kansas, because of its basketball program, would be there, but we don't know how legit that is and what else is real. But beyond that, those two conferences aren't going to take everybody. We know that. And we know that even though Texas Tech feels like it's out in New Mexico or Arizona, it's not. And, we don't know if the Pac-12 would be interested in trying to pluck the remaining programs, try to get to 16. We don't know if program like an Iowa State or Kansas State would find the idea of playing in a conference with USC and Oregon State and 2 time zones away, if that's more appealing than trying to make a super-powered AAC or whatever. But the bottom line is, no matter what options are on the table, it's going to be less lucrative, and it's going to be less, maybe the AAC would work out geographically, but only sort of, and it wouldn't, there are no good options, let's put it that way. Unless you get a life raft to the Big Ten or maybe the ACC, there just aren't any great options, and that doesn't seem to be that's most certainly not part of Oklahoma and Texas calculus here.
Bill Connelly from ESPN talking with me. Yeah, and something that I've heard from a lot of people, be it fellow media members or K-State fans around here, and I'm not real sure where I fall on this, is this thought of okay, well, if this happens and the powers in college football just become more homogenized here, will the interest in the game go down because you have so many fan bases that would be left out in the cold, like a K-State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, would there be less interest overall in college football because it just turns into all these superpowers playing in 2 or 3 different conferences? Basically like the Big Ten and the SEC, and then everybody else loses interest.
I mean, I mean, we're already sort of seeing that with the Pac-12, and all that really has happened in the Pac-12 is they haven't made as much money as the SEC and Big Ten. They've missed out on the playoffs and whatnot. But I mean, how do you not, if you're a Kansas State fan, how do you not look at this and you see, among other things, a situation where you've won a Big 12 title since the last time Texas did. Yeah. Your conference, all these members have bent over backwards to make Texas happy, and they can still just nuke the conference because they have more money. It would be very hard for me to maintain that level of motivation just when it comes to following the sport, or caring about the sport when it most certainly doesn't care about you. And that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing that matters to me is just the overall college football ecosystem. And I understand how a move like this would make money for Oklahoma and Texas. It would probably make money for the SEC. It would be just great for their relationship. Those 16 programs, and by the way, there are a lot of K-States in the SEC. It's not like they're all Alabama. It's just they're more geographically lucky, I guess. But the idea that we would be willing to leave a bunch of fan bases aside and put even more power where power already resides just that's not fun. I realize that's always been a part of college football, that there are blue bloods and ruling parties and whatnot, but this would be going further than we've ever gone in that direction.
Yeah, it would be a bummer for sure. Bill, while I have you, and before I let you go, what do you think of K-State this season? No one's really focused on that here at the moment, but when we do get to a season, what do you think of the Wildcats on the field this year?
Yeah, I wrote a big preview about the Big 12 like 2 weeks ago. It feels like 3 months ago all of a sudden. But no, I mean, it's hard to. If Kansas State suddenly bounces back and becomes really good again, we're not really going to see it coming because it's going to come from recruiting and development, and suddenly a lot more Deuce Vaughns popping up on the 2 deep. So it's hard to look at the roster and say, okay, yes, this is going to be great. They're absolutely going to bounce back. But that's not the way a climbing program is going to work. So I think just having Thompson back at quarterback, if he's healthy and stable, that's going to solve a lot of the issues that we saw last year. And I mean, there could certainly be bowl potential, but it's hard to. You figure he's probably a couple more years away from really kind of having that 2 deep how he wants it, and it's just going to be kind of trying to eke out some bowl seasons between now and then before things get rolling.
Well, selfishly now, with all of this happening, please tell me that you think Texas is going to finish in the back half of the conference here and fall off without a quarterback and with, I think, a question mark at head coach anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it would be Iowa State wins the conference and Texas goes 6-6 or 5-7. Those things would be. I think fans would notice such a thing. I think they might, point that out to Texas fans.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Sark as an offensive coordinator for sure, and I thought he was underrated at Washington or underappreciated at Washington. So I mean, there's very much a chance that he can kind of get things clicking a little bit. I think it's going to take them a little while on defense. That's probably what holds them back. But it is going to be. I mean, look, whatever our feelings of Sark are, it's clearly a harder job than we're led on by the revenue and everything, because they've only really made a couple good hires, a couple successful hires in the last 40 years. So it's not necessarily, even if Sark's a pretty good head coach, we'll see if he can steer that ship, because it's apparently pretty hard to steer.
Yeah. The last 12 years certainly tell us that. Bill, really appreciate the time and joining me here again. Bill Connelly from ESPN. Go follow his work. It's great stuff. I've really enjoyed your work for a long time. It was really fun to talk to you. Thanks for making the time today.
Thank you.